And we're back, going live.
Was you deeply, profoundly disappointed when you didn't make that team? The Detroit Lions?
I was disappointed to tears.
I'm gonna tell you why you know why you didn't make it. One thing. Remember you asked us to pray for you? That's one time I didn't pray for you. I won't tell you why, because I didn't want them to break you up. And the only thing I could see and visualize my boy on the stretcher the first time somebody hits you, carrying you out. Remember you told me when you trained with them somewhat, they thought they hit. I said, well, they naturally be easy on you. I said, but wait till those opponents come in there. You understand that?
No, I can take it. You know, I did good. I went through a month at Eastern Michigan, and they're a pretty tough bunch of guys up there, and we hit every day. You know?
They really did. You didn't feel they lighten up on you?
Well, I don't know. I didn't get hurt. You know, I had just a normal bumps. But you can get hurt, you know, but I feel like football is a strange sport. I can play football. If I can get in shape with maybe, I'm probably too old now. But if I were not too old to play, I have the mentality to play football. I know I do because, you know, whatever deficiencies you may have as an athlete on a football field, if you use your brains along with your ability, you can generally negate, you know, like if a guy's stronger than you, if you're a little quicker, then you can negate his strength somewhat, and it goes like that. So, you know, I have the mentality to really play the game. That's why I never really got hurt, you know. But I could have played.
I'll never forget the day when you left home, you got in that station wagon with Mr. Harvey's Fickle, and you bumped your knee on the door, looking up to tell me goodbye. And I went to you goodbye, and that's when you left home and things began to move there. You went through a period of, I guess, little hardships, which is a part of a person's bring them up and a part of their, you know, building them up. And finally, when you first put out your first record, seemed to me, I was surprised along the way. I said, here's a dream come true. I had a lot of dreams about you, and I saw it, didn't you? Year after year, he's doing the very thing which he told me he would do with that form of training. I'll never forget that picture, you getting in that car. You'd be surprised the feeling the parents has when they see their children leaving.
It's Marvin and his father. Peace, Sister Kim.
You know, juvenile delinquency was prevalent all over the nation.
King Kong said, who's that lady? That's Marvin Gaye Sr.
So we had to live with that. And by you not getting into trouble, that was a great burden off from your mother in our minds and our hearts. And I'm going to give to you now before these cameras and for these people. I think you're one for myself. As long as I know you have a humble mind, and as long as you know there's a God upstairs, you can call on him and respect the people. I think you're a real wonderful person. I'm going to give that.
Aerosmith couldn't have said it better.
This is a song about a beautiful little girl. A girl I love. We did it on our album.
So now, you know, you can understand the insecurities that he had with his own sexuality and with wanting to change his name and everything because of his insecurity concerning his old dude. That is his father. That's Marvin's father, who was known for cross-dressing, but also was a minister of a extreme sanctified charismatic type church. I forget the denomination of it, and had risen up somewhat and was in position to become a bishop, I believe, in a church. So yeah, and he used to take Marvin along with him on revivals, and Marvin would cut his singing chops there during those revivals. So here we have again another example of an artist who was raised up in a church atmosphere. Also, if you ask me, has a lot of indications of being a Project Monarch slave himself. Not and you know, oftentimes we'll find an abuser turned into an abuser because they started off being abused. And I think that was the case with Marvin Gaye, and I also believe that they allowed for him to become some sort of handler to a degree at least. So, Sister Judy says, was it a Catholic church? No, it's a sanctified denomination. I forget it. It was actually in Wikipedia too. If you look up Marvin Gaye Senior, it'll tell you. I've heard of the church before. Kind of a, I wouldn't say well known, but I mean it's like it's bigger it's like a Church of God in Christ type of entity. Something along that line of prominence at that time, at this time, anyway. So now we're on page 148, the chapter called "Return to the Maze." And let's start off here and let's run through it. Let's do it. Oh yeah, I forgot you said you were in Lansing. Let me see. Did you go to MSU? Wait a minute. In Lansing? Right. Yeah, right. MSU. Yeah. Anyhow, I'm sorry, I digress, but return to the maze. That's right. Judge a man by his fruits, not his fruity. Return to the maze. Oh, okay. Right on. Yeah, that's where my sister went. But okay. It says there was the beautifully peaceful Marvin. The Marvin who spent endless hours in the studio with his music, honing his harmonies, and constructing melodies and counter melodies of astounding grace. Oh, wow. He went there when magic went there. Interesting. This was the Marvin that I held closest to my heart. The Marvin who voiced the deepest emotions and transformed pain into beauty. Thank you, DK Foreman. The House of God. Thank you. I couldn't think of that to save my life. Okay. It says, this was the Marvin that I held closest to my heart. The Marvin who voiced the deepest emotions and transformed pain into beauty. This was the Marvin who, even in realizing an extravagantly erotic work like I Want You, was also able to ascend beyond the flesh into the realm of the mystical. There was also the Marvin who was determined to clean up his act and stop smoking Camels and Marlboros. He'd renounce pot and coke and swear never to eat meat again. He'd turn over a new leaf by going on a super strict health routine for a month and expect everyone to follow. Everyone did. We wanted to please him. We also wanted to get healthy ourselves. Suddenly it was all about organic food, long hikes, bike rides, basketball games, and strenuous jogs. But then someone would offer him a joint, he'd accept, and we'd all be back at square one. One of his cleanest periods came after Muhammad Ali invited us to his home in Hancock Park. At the time, he was married to Veronica Porsche, with whom I'd gone to high school. Come on, man. For real. So she also went to high school with Muhammad Ali, first wife. Marvin and Ali played basketball and became great friends. It was only a few weeks later that Marvin was asked, along with Sammy Davis and Richard Pryor. It was only a few weeks later that Marvin was asked, along with Sammy Davis and Richard Pryor, to face Ali in the ring as part of a charity event. Of course, it was a lark, but Marvin didn't take it that way. He went into training and dreamed of actually knocking down the champ. He bought all the professional gear, hired a trainer, and went to work. At the event itself, he entered the arena with a full entourage and even had it filmed. Sammy and Richard never took it seriously and, once in the ring, ran from the champ. The audience howled. But when Marvin got into the ring, he actually began to box. It didn't take more than a minute for Ali to knock him to the ground. Because Ali loved him, he didn't hurt him. But Marvin was nonetheless humiliated. When it came to sporting feats, Marvin had delusions of grandeur. I told you. He tried out for the Detroit Lions. The footnote to this story happened at a Motown picnic where Ali and Marvin ran a 100-yard dash. Marvin beat him and saw that as something of a consolation prize to what had happened in the ring. Marvin had other friendships that he found satisfying. Ray Charles had us up to his home in Baldwin Hills and was a kind and attentive host. He and Marvin admired each other enormously. Ike Turner has us down to his Bolic Sound Studios in Inglewood, where he charmed us with funny stories and carried around his coke supply in a suitcase. Nevertheless, we got blasted. Same goes for Red Fox, who invited us to his home in Studio City and kept us both high and in stitches. Natalie Cole, then married to Marvin Yancey. You know, that's Jay Dilla's last name. But anyway, Natalie Cole, then married to Marvin Yancey, adored my Marvin and hosted us on several occasions. We spent a wonderful evening with Bill Cosby and his wife, Camille. My wife, Camille. In Las Vegas, where Marvin and I stayed in the Elvis Suite at the Hilton. And in Chicago, Jesse Jackson had us over to his house where he and Marvin enjoyed a highly competitive game of basketball. Every once in a while, Marvin liked to break loose and go out on the town to have some fun. After his performance at Radio City in New York, he and I were invited by Mick Jagger and Jerry Hall to join them at Studio 54, the hottest disco. The hottest disco on the planet. During the show itself, I stood next to Mick in the wings. Mick watched Marvin reverently. Studio 54 was a trip. Cutting through the long line of eager souls begging for admittance, we were whisked inside and escorted up to the balcony, where everyone was openly snorting coke. When we learned that the star attraction of the night was Sylvester, Marvin led me down to the dressing room. Oh, Lord, please, Lord, help me. No. Okay. When we learned that the star attraction of the night was Sylvester, yeah, that's Sylvester, not Stallone. Not talking about Sly and the Family Stone. That's Sylvester. Marvin led me down to the dressing room so we could say hello. Both Marvin and I adored Sylvester. We saw him as the greatest of all the disco artists. He was a beautiful man. It was fascinating to see how he and Marvin... Oh, Lord. Oh, I'm through. I can't read no more. I'm done. Here we go. It was fascinating to see how he and Marvin were attracted to each other. Yet I wouldn't call the attraction sexual. She's crazy as a road lizard, too. Sylvester had a freedom that Marvin admired, and Marvin had a sophistication that Sylvester found alluring. They chatted like old friends. Their common link was Harvey Fuqua, the man who had discovered Marvin and produced Sylvester. The mood was altered when Grace Jones and Dolph Lundgren showed up. Two outsized personalities who sucked all the air out the room. Marvin and I wished Sylvester well and went back upstairs where we watched his fabulous show. With flash bulbs popping, I was certain our picture would wind up in Rolling Stone, and it did. During that same New York trip, we met Andy Warhol, who spoke as though he worshipped Marvin. He gushed how he just had to paint Marvin's portrait, and Marvin agreed, but never followed up. Typical Marvin, she says. One time he did follow up. We had hung out with Argentinian jazz saxophonist, Gatto Barbieri and his Italian wife Michelle in their Manhattan apartment. During the evening, Gatto kept praising Marvin's writing and asked whether he'd composed something for him. Marvin agreed to do it, and did. A few weeks later, he wrote Latin Reaction, one of his best instrumental efforts. Marvin liked the hot spots. Back in L.A., we'd sometimes cruise over to Beverly Hills and lunch at the Daisy, a happening bistro. Once, looking across the room, Marvin spotted a woman he described as gorgeous enough to stop traffic. "I can't think of her name," he said. "I can. That's Candace Bergen." When I kept sneaking glances, Marvin accused me of having sexual designs on her. So it's the type of little freakish game they played. He was wrong. I was simply bowled over by her beauty. During that same lunch, it's too much. During that same lunch, we noticed Ryan O'Neal. In this instance, it was Marvin who seemed obsessed. He couldn't stop staring. I didn't see it as physical attraction, but merely fascination. O'Neal was an incredibly handsome movie star. I told Marvin, "If I can see that you're not sexualizing Ryan, just admiring him, then I hope you can see that I wasn't sexualizing Candace. Beauty is captivating." "Well, it certainly is," said Marvin. "And it seems as though your beauty has captivated Ryan. He's coming over to say hello." He arrived at our table and shook hands with Marvin, who introduced him to me. I was thrilled. The thrill took a different turn, though, when O'Neal stood behind my chair and pressed himself against my neck, which was covered over by my long, wild hair. He made his move with great subtlety, but there was no mistaking the feel of his penis against my neck. As he spoke with Marvin, he kept pressing ever so slightly. I had a funny smile on my face. I didn't know what to say or do, so I did nothing. When he left, I didn't share the experience with Marvin. I was afraid it would only lead to a fight. On another evening, Marvin and I were dining at Mr. Chow in Beverly Hills. We were about to leave when Bud Cork, the actor who had played Harold in Harold and Maude, ran up to our table and told Marvin how he adored him. He said he had a friend who he wanted us to meet. The friend who was waiting outside for his car was the great Groucho Marx. We all exchanged numbers, but as with nearly every chance meeting with Marvin, there was no follow-through. As free spirits, we lived in Marvin's studio with Nona and Frankie. Where we went, most of the time our children went with us. When Marvin and I needed alone time, we would call on loving family members to care for the children. In 1975 to 76, Marvin was working on his I Want You album. The studio was bursting with incredible music and the energy was at times surreal. We also designated 6553 Sunset, 11 and 8. Okay. The studio, our home, as Party Central. When there was a birthday, anniversary, listening session, or really any occasion to celebrate, it usually happened there. Our parties were legendary for those who worked at the studio and for those who visited and wanted to hang out. They wanted to be near Marvin, to be inspired, to get high, to have fun, and to create music, real music. With the living quarters upstairs and with a closet here or a bathroom there, there was always some place for the kids to hide and sometimes the adults. It provided us and those that we knew a second home. The windows upstairs had two-way glass that allowed us to look down from our bedroom and see who came and went. It always made for interesting conversation. We knew who was hitting on who and who had the drugs, when to hide if there was someone we didn't want to see, and when to go down there and greet any new arrivals. Once people got there, they didn't want to leave, especially if we were having one of our celebrations. We would go all out, having food, drinks, drugs, celebrities, music, and more music. I threw a party for Marvin in 1977. It was one of the best parties ever. Muhammad Ali, Cecil Franklin, Aretha's son. Interesting how everything is just tying in. supernaturally. Super agent Phil Casey. Super producer Leon Ware, producer of the I Want You albums, and its very distinctive sound. It can be found on his albums as well, Leon Ware. I sampled him many times. It was one of my best kept sampling secrets. Because I just got wise. I liked the music on I Want You. I saw who the producer was. I went and found his music, Leon Ware. So, super producer Leon Ware and his wife Carol. Don Cornelius, who you know supposedly had a gay romance with O'Brien. Richard Pryor, who supposedly had a gay romance with Paul Mooney. No. He had his first gay experience with him. No. They were together. Super producer, what did he say? Leon Ware and his wife Carol, Don Cornelius, Richard Pryor, jet photographer Ike Sutton, who became a dear friend, Jane Kennedy, Smokey Robinson Kane, Thomas Hollywood Henderson, Azizi Johari, Denise Nicholas, and many other stars came to enjoy a great party. At this particular party, we let the kids hang out for a little while, even though they were only 2 and 3. Marvin had finished I Want You, and his massive hit Got to Give It Up, which we played whenever we wanted to get people moving. Before the party really got going, Nona insisted on showing off her dance moves to anybody who would watch, to anyone who would watch. Got to Give It Up was playing as she went to work. She jumped and bumped, hooped and hollered, went into a spin at one point and fell on her bottom. Now listen, y'all, don't y'all let me forget this because I forgot it now for a couple of live streams. We cannot neglect looking at Nona's connection to Prince, and all of that ties in with this duality, right? I know she said that Prince stood her up and ended up marrying Mayte or whatever. But prior to that, he had been telling her that he was going to marry her. So it's interesting to see how all that played out. Nona Gay. She can make me some grits too. It said, Got to Give It Up was playing. She bumped on, okay. She was pleasing with her performance, okay. And she fell on her bottom, okay. Never missing a beat. She spun around on the floor, jumped up, making the fall a part of her dance. She was pleased with her performance. We laughed, clapped, and cheered for her. Being a big ham, she wanted to do it all over again, but it was time for her to head to bed. My mother arrived to pick Nona up and take her to her house. To get some sleep. Stevie Wonder showed up that night, and we gave him a tour by describing this and that. We took him up to our living area. Stevie knew acoustics so well with his heightened senses that he stood in the middle of the room and said, "Wow, I'm digging the surround sound." He instinctively knew that the room was round. I was amazed by his perceptibility. Even Slim ended up working at the studio for a while. He would primarily hang with my brother Mark and Marvin's brother Frankie, who took care of our day-to-day. It was nice having family around. There was a lot of laughter, pranks, and good times. One of my favorite occasions was Marvin wearing his pyramid hat. Oh, I'm done. Yeah, I thought about that too. The way she worded that, it was like, oh yeah, we described this and that. So hey, like I said, all I've heard the rumors, but who knows? But what about this pyramid hat? Oh Lord, here we go. There's more. One of my favorite occasions was Marvin wearing his pyramid hat. He said it made him smarter and made it easier to create music. It looked ridiculous, but he swore by it. Now, I do think that was a trendy thing at the time because I've seen this on something. When they were making a mockery of something. The connections just keep on going. The Franklin cover-up. That pyramid hat played a part in the Franklin cover-up. Excuse me, not that. The middle school, in the middle school case that Ted Gunderson broke in that case. It figured prominently in that case. Anyway, one of the accused, I believe it was one of the young men who ran the daycare center, he swore by this pyramid hat, and he said it made him smarter too. And these were occultists who were involved in something along the line of a Franklin cover-up. And he had him a pyramid hat. Somebody remembers that. It's on the tip of my tongue. Ted Gunderson, McMichaels, the McMichaels School. Okay, there was a made-for-TV movie starring James Woods, I believe, that dealt with the McMichaels cover-up. One of the accused, one of the young men, or one of the adults that was accused of running this ring, had this pyramid hat, and it was described by the children who had been victimized by him. So it would play a part in his ritual. Overstand. Let's move forward. Let's move forward. See, we didn't think we was going to find all this. Scratch a lie, find a thief. Sometimes just leave well enough alone. Just let it be like it is. Okay, let's read here. Hold on. It says, one of my favorite occasions was Marvin wearing his pyramid hat. I had to run that back again. Wish I wasn't seeing things. He said it made him smarter. No, I'm just kidding. He said it made him smarter and made it easier to create music. It looked ridiculous, but he swore by it. Don't touch Daddy's pyramid, he would tell the kids. Of course, that made them want to not only touch it, but throw it about, bend it, and put it on each other's heads. The studio was next door to a health food store, where we were always finding interesting items like the pyramid hat or biofeedback machines. Yeah, this was, yeah, right. It was part of the New Age craze. Okay. Witchcraft by any other name. Marvin was way ahead of the times when it came to natural health and metaphysical concepts. He taught me a lot about vitamins, or mins, as he called them, and herbs for every ailment. He read Back to Eden and bought numerous copies to give away as gifts, convinced that he knew how to live forever. He would also read Edgar Cayce to me. Marvin was very into the occult. Marvin scared the S out of me with stories about Cayce, Virginia Beach, and how we should all move there to survive the end of the world. One of his favorite topics. The more I cried out in fear, the more he laid it on. Then he would do his best to make me laugh. It didn't always work, though. He was incredibly hip and smart, open-minded and forward-thinking. Jane Fonda was another star drawn to Marvin. One day she came bouncing into his Sunset Boulevard studio looking like a little girl in a candy store. I was there when he played her some of his new music. Afterward, she talked of plans to start up an aerobics center. Would he be interested in investing? He was. I was afraid, of course, that his interest had more to do with Jane than with her aerobics. The two had engaged in super intense eye contact. A week or so later, Jane invited Marvin to see the space that she had rented on Robertson Boulevard. He decided to take me along. The center was impressive, gleaming wood floors, expansive mirrors, bars along the walls. Marvin thanked the assistant who showed us around and then asked when Jane would be arriving. I'm afraid she won't be, the assistant said. I wondered whether that was because she had been told that I was there. In any event, I was relieved. Marvin didn't invest. I'm not sure he ever saw Jane again. But he did see Diane Cannon, famous for rooting on the LA Lakers from her floor seat at the Forum. When friends told me of the rumor that Marvin had been hanging out with Diane at the Forum Club, I grew alarmed and confronted him. We both love the game of basketball, he said. That's all there is to it. But why am I learning about this through friends? Why did you tell me you were seeing her? Why didn't you tell me you were seeing her? I'm not seeing her, as you put it. I'm just hanging out with her, and only once in a great while. It's an innocent thing. And not an affair? A friendship, yes. A love affair, no. When it came to Marvin and other women, I was always on guard, especially as he escalated his divorce war with Anna, as in Anna Gordy. As those wars threatened his emotional and financial well-being, Marvin became more vulnerable. He refused to retreat or listen to reason. He also grew more hostile. When he faced the prospect of losing all his material possessions, he responded with, "Après moi, le déluge." After me, the flood. The foreboding words allegedly ascribed to Louis XV. Marvin saw himself as a king about to lose his empire, but rather than alarm him, the prospect of ruin excited him. It's out of his mind. He was further excited by the notion that I might be unfaithful. It took me a long time to understand why. Why would a man who had declared his love to me with the most romantic words and the most romantic music want to see that love tarnished and broken? Why design drama that would lead to heartbreak? Why ask for chaos and confusion? I was deeply confused when Frankie Beverly drove to the ranch in Round Mountain to meet with Marvin about an upcoming tour. And once again, Marvin forced me into a situation calculated to both tantalize and traumatize. Calculated to both tantalize and traumatize. She's a victim too. We can't forget that she's a victim. So we like Marvin music. We can't forget she's the most victimized here. Although you take everything back to childhood, I mean, hey, Marvin got his honest too, I guess. It said, just as Marvin went out of his way to avoid sex for the weeks preceding Frankie's first trip, he repeated the pattern with the second trip. He did this to play on my insecurities. When Frankie arrived, I was filled with uncertainty about my attractiveness. I was ashamed of my post-baby body. Marvin used my insecurity to further upset me. What seemed unreasonable, though, was when Marvin told me that he had reserved 2 rooms at a nearby motel in Reading, one for Frankie and one for me. Why in the world would you do that? I asked. I want you to be comfortable, dear, he said. I've got work to do. I argued that it was a weird arrangement. I saw it as a setup. I need to be alone, was all Marvin kept saying. A few hours later, Frankie and I were checking into the motel when we discovered that Marvin had arranged for us to have adjoining rooms. Not an hour passed before Frankie knocked on my door. Can I come in? After the morning after. I hesitated. I was aware of his desire for me, and I couldn't deny that I also desired him. I wanted to be desired. I wanted to feel that despite Marvin's recent rejections, I was a woman men found sexy. Frankie was a sexy man. Our relationship had been flirtatious from the start. At the same time, I had no intention of sleeping with him. Like my Uncle W.M. Sure, I said matter-of-factly. Hold on. I unlocked the adjoining door. Frankie was standing there, all smiles. Do you want me to roll it? Do you want to smoke a joint? He asked. I was just rolling one. Come in. Well, this is weird that we're neighbors, but I'm glad you're next door. Me too, I said. We both tried to play off our awkwardness. There were 2 beds. He sat on one, I sat on the other. Before we could do any talking, though, there was a loud banging on the door. It was Marvin telling me to open up. So crazy crackheads here. My heart started pounding as Frankie dropped to his hands and knees and crawled back to his room. Marvin's knock got louder. With Frankie back in his room, I opened the door to let Marvin in. He looked around suspiciously. I smell weed, he said. Of course you do. I just smoked a joint. Where's Frankie? In his room, I guess. I tried to lighten the mood and act like Marvin was the crazy one. He finally relaxed and stayed for an hour or two. When he left and went back to the ranch, he took Frankie with him. I was relieved to see them both go. Less than a month later, Marvin invited right. Ain't that right, Sister Estelle? What a mess. And that's right, moving weight sure did set it up. Less than a month later, Marvin invited Frankie and Maze to open for him in Atlantic City. As usual, Marvin dreaded the event. His performance anxiety had reached new heights. To beat back the fears, he got high and was nearly 2 hours late to the venue. Finally, we got into the limo. The driver sped along the highway while Marvin insisted that I twist him yet another joint. Something didn't feel right. I sensed imminent danger. Hurry, my man, Marvin urged the driver. Do whatever you have to do, but get us there in 10 minutes. We're a half hour away, sir, said the driver. Not if you throw caution to the wind, said Marvin. I'll pay the speeding ticket. Just press on. Hit it, man. Hit it hard. In response, the driver went crazy as if being chased. He floored the pedal and started speeding at what felt like 100 miles an hour, swerving from lane to lane and barely avoiding one collision after another. We were scared to death. I was certain that Marvin and I would both be killed. I tried to tell the driver to slow down, but fear blocked my words. Ain't that right, King of Kong? Ain't he? And then it happened. The limo crashed head-on into a telephone pole. I was thrown into the front seat. As I was carried out of the car, I moved in and out of consciousness. Marvin, unhurt, was by my side. You have to stay alive, baby, Marvin was saying. You can't go. You can't leave me. I want to marry you. I want you to be my wife. Do you hear me? Please, Jan, please say yes. Please marry me. The timing of this, still another proposal from Marvin, was definitely strange. It came when I was suffering a concussion. At the same time, I was happy to hear the words. I was happy to accept his proposal. And then, hearing the siren of the arriving ambulance, I passed out. When I awoke, I was back at the hotel. Marvin was still by my side. You're here, dear, he said. You're safe. You survived. Our love can survive anything. God was watching over us. You said you loved me. You said you'll marry me. Say it again. I said it again before falling back into unconsciousness. When I woke a few hours later, Marvin was holding my hand. He gazed deep into my eyes and said, I knew God wouldn't take you from me. I knew he couldn't be that cruel. Later that night, I learned that the driver had been killed on impact at Marvin's command of Hit It Man. Wow. The news broke my heart. I thought about this tragic loss of life and his grieving family. It could have easily been you, said Marvin, or me. We were spared. God spared us. The concert was canceled. Frankie Beverly never got to open up for Marvin Gaye. Repeating his proposal to me over and over again, Marvin concentrated on making me happy. It was now Marvin who wanted me for himself. Marvin who insisted that I come with him on his tour of England. He insisted that I be with him every minute of every day. I must vow never to leave him. I must believe him when he said that despite all the delays and legal complications, he will have his divorce from Anna. He will create comfort and bliss. He will be sweet. You will hit that thumbs up button as long as you're sitting here looking at me at 6 o'clock in the morning. 39 folks eye hustling and ear hustling. Only 29 of y'all can hit that button. See how people do you? It says, no, thank you. Thanks to those who heard and heeded. Thank you so much. He says, he will have his divorce from Anna. He will create comfort and bliss. He will be sweet. All the wills are italicized. He will be true. He will honor and safeguard me. He will love and protect our precious children. He will make our life heaven on earth. He will. He will. He swears he will. That's the end of that chapter. Let's see what folks is. 7:17 a.m. So I ought to could drop the mic. So let's see the consensus. Let's see what people are saying. Thank you so much for hitting that button. Did she say she woke in her hotel room? You know what it said? I thought it said. You said. I was thrown to the front seat as I was carried out of the car, moving unconscious. Marvin was unhurt by my side. You can't go. Yeah, she passed out as she heard the ambulance coming. So yeah, that's. No, it says when I awoke, I was back at the hotel. That's what that was. Right, no hospital. Ah, right on, Candy. Interesting. Wow. Very interesting. Well, okay, Sister King Kong said they must have had a nurse in the hotel room. Okay, that makes sense. Mm-hmm. Thank you for riding with me, Sister Cookie. Now, Big Nephew Ronell said the driver was a hit. That's what I'm starting to get. That's what I'm getting out of that. I'm getting out of that. That could have been his sacrifice. She talked about how much he was reading about the metaphysics and the occult, right? Maybe he picked up on that. He's reading about Edgar Cayce. My old dude had Edgar Cayce books and Aleister Crowley books together. He was a contemporary of Marvin Gaye. So it's quite logical or believable that Marvin was probably reading all of these different things, found out about the sacrifice, the hookup, or through his interactions with all these stars. She named too many stars for him not to learn about that, right? We also got to remember there's a way that she's telling her joke in reverse, right? Certain things she can't say, at the risk of compromising whatever benefit she gets from having at one time been with Marvin Gaye. And knowing all that she knows. She's like an ex-mob wife or something. So what she's trying to tell us, she can only tell us to a certain degree, it appears to me. She's trying to let us know about her background. It would take the king of goofy goobers to hear all the different people she supposedly went to school with. For those of you who are just not joining in, she went to school with the Jackson boys, right? Yeah. She went to school with the Jackson boys. I don't mean Randy and Jesse. I'm talking about she supposedly, one of the first parties that Marvin threw Michael Caine. So she's trying to tell us some things here too. But yeah, that sounded like a sacrifice, killing of some kind. And it didn't have to be an official one, That could have just been this. Marvin is walking around with all this demonic energy attached to him that, things can happen like that. If you are in that system. You're compliant to the system. Those spirits are always coming and going concerning you as it is. You can say something and be in a situation like that on a particular day, on a particular street, whatever that street was named, in a particular model of car. And all of that may be sufficient to line up to where you would make an occult sacrifice or a suitable sacrifice for that realm, or for those who are beholden to that realm. And Marvin was certainly beholden to that realm. That same competitive nature that made him want to think he could play with the Detroit Lions and try to beat Muhammad Ali in boxing and try to beat everybody at basketball. It's that same thing that made him desire to be the number one singer. He wanted to be the top singer. He envisioned himself doing something Sinatra-esque as he gained in years. He didn't want to see himself boogieing and doing the same old R&B jive for the rest of his life. He saw himself leaned on a stool, like Nat King Cole or something, crooning to folks like that, crooning and pat booning. And who knows? Perhaps he could have had that fate. But when we step from out of the protective will and protection of the Father, we are subject to come what may. Whatever fate could possibly come in the world, any of those fates could come to us if we're not standing under the promise of that hope and that future and that good expected end. And in Philippians 4:8, focus. So, without further ado, I think we're going to go ahead and let that do. And when we start back up, because I might need for y'all to help me remember this, Family Love is the name of the next chapter. And that will be for next weekend's read. Again, for suggestions and whatnot, questions and whatnot, brothermantheo@gmail.com. If you want to support and do so through PayPal, if you want to do that, you can do that at this address, the Temple of the True Yahshua @yahoo.com. And you can send any correspondence, prayer requests, whatever you want to say. I suppose it's here to brothermantheo@gmail.com. And this is also the one to use if you are in need of some spiritual help. Before I can be of any help to you, I need an idea of what's going on, and more than a general one at that, for both of our benefit. Have to have that. So I appreciate folks who are able to provide that for me. It helps out a lot. And thank you so much for the equality of 47 and 47. And I know lots of folks have probably missed things. I believe Sister Eleanor just probably woke back up. Sister Candy said, thank you, Brother Theo. I will go back and watch what I missed when you posted. I slept all night by accident. That's okay. I understand that. And I appreciate folks that understand that this is, this is the time when I have time. When I have time and space and ability and all of that. Everything lines up best for me at this time on Saturday evening. And so until that changes, I do thank folks who make it their business to come and check it out. And I appreciate that. It makes me feel good. Puts a grin on my chin. And makes me want to keep on keeping on. So, but I'm tired. I got to go. Love you all. I said the ending prayer in the last live stream, so we're just going to say good night. And again, thank you all. Maybe we'll go out with another gospel tune find something smooth if I can. Peace and blessings to you, our card. Please, anything that I forgot, please charge it to my head, not my heart. I try to remember things. I realized I forgot Prince X. I totally did. But thank you all for your joining in this evening, and we'll be certainly keeping in touch throughout the week. Again, folks who are unaware, we have a community section now on the channel where you go to leave your comments or whatever, and the other brothers and sisters in the channel can also chime in. Not enough memory to open the page. Isn't that interesting? But yeah, it's real easy. Okay, not enough memory to open that page. Okay, well, so we're done for the night. But yeah, if you go to, okay, I can show you here. I guess I can show you on this one. Okay, for those who are interested in the community section at all, so you go up here, you go to unplug them. Just like you don't know me from Adam, and you're going to my channel here, push this here. And after you push the icon, the unplug them channel icon, it takes you to this screen. It's on this screen that you find the community section right there. Just click on community right there. Lots of channels will be having this now. It's a new feature as far as I know, as far as I can tell. So yeah, so you hit community and it'll take you there. But anyway, it's not set up to show up on this tablet. And good night to everyone. Grace Keep It Together says good night, good morning, everyone. Thank you, Brother Theo. Enjoy catching your back videos during the week. Well, thank you so much for enjoying, and I appreciate you. Sister Vanette said, there goes my feed. It's about time for me to feed. Julie Vito says, the sun's up and it's a great beach day here. Don't rub it in. Don't rub it in. It's actually warmed up here in this cold piece of town. It's warmed up quite a bit. Looking for library. Okay, well, I was going to try to find us a tune to play on the way out. If possible, if possible. I don't know, it's not looking so good for us. Okay. Here's one. If they let us play it, we'll see what happens. LB, peace and blessings. Bye-bye, Dog's Way, peace and blessings to you. Thank you, Sister Jazz. Good morning, Adrian. Thank you, Sister Lisa. You do the same. Glad you better, Erica. Thank you, Sister Kristen. Peace and rewards to all.
I've been viewed and I've been stoned. I've been talked about, yes I have. Just as sure as you born. This is a mean world to try to live in, but you've got to stay here until you die. Without a mother, no, 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 no. Don't even have a father. I'm looking for my sister. I can't even find my brother. And I wish I had somebody to say, glory. 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 When you get back, that's all you got to say is glory. Glory. Friends walk away from you. Just look away and say glory. Thank the Lord for another day. Glory. I've got eyes to see. Ears to hear. Voice to talk. Glory. 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 Nobody knows. Oh, no, no. Nobody knows. Oh, my sorrow. Glory. 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 Nobody. Nobody. I tried to tell the white man, but he could not understand. I tried to tell the black man, but he refused to take my hand.
It was Pastor T.L. Barrett and the Youth for Christ Choir, Nobody Knows, with Nobody Knows. And thank you all. And hope to see you next Saturday night and Wednesday for prayer and Bible study. Shalom. of men who will be men today. We are in need of strong men today. Families are in need of men who will be men today. The world is in need of men who will stand for God today. If there be none for you, Father, take me, Lord. I'm willing and I want to be true, because I've learned that when I was a child, I spoke as a child. Because I've learned that when I was a child, I understood as a child. Because I've learned that when I was a child, I thought as a child. But now, oh now, I'm a man. Ask and you shall receive, my childish way. My childish way. My childish way. We are in need of men who will be men today. We are in need of strong men today. Lord, our women need men who shall love your way. Father, we are in need of your guidance today. Father and Son, Mother and daughter, Father, we are in need of your guidance today. Father and Son, Mother and daughter, Father, we are in need of your guidance today. If there be none, Father, for you, take me, Lord. I'm willing and want to be true. I said, if there be none, Father, for you. Peace in the north, south, west, and east. Love y'all.